Hello everyone, this is StrawberryShorty here with a review of the Famicom Detective Club games. I always want to call them the Super Famicom Detective Club games. But, so Famicom is the name for the original Nintendo over in Japan, which is the console that these games were originally released for. They were later updated a bit and put on the Super Nintendo, and not too long ago they were completely redone and released on the Nintendo Switch. And I just got done beating the second game last night, so I wanted to record this review. The first game is The Missing Heir, and the second is The Girl Who Stands Behind. At least that is their release order. Chronologically, The Girl Who Stands Behind serves as a prequel. So this is like a cross between like a visual novel adventure-y sort of game. You go around and you have like a menu that will appear whenever you're in a location, and it'll be like travel, talk, think, call / engage, stuff like that. Sometimes you'll get the opportunity to show or take, or but those are a lot less common. So it's not a lot to say about like the basic setup of each game. The Missing Heir has our protagonist with amnesia, later learning that they are trying to find the missing heir of this wealthy family that's got quite the history. And then The Girl Who Stands Behind involves trying to unravel the mystery behind this school rumor about a ghost and how it's connected to the recent death of one of the students who was investigating said rumor. And I guess I would start off with some complaints that I have, because a lot the games play very similarly. So a lot of like the complaints and praise apply to both games. So complaint wise, I don't think most of the characters are super memorable. Like, I can remember what they look like, but it's been a while since I've beat The Missing Heir, and like if you ask me to name the characters, even like one of the characters, I'm just like I can't. I don't remember any of these people's names. And that is somewhat unfortunate. They're just not. They're just not super memorable. Like, it's not like Phoenix Wright or Danganronpa or anything. They're very normal people. They look normal, but they just don't really get a chance to shine, I guess I would say. Like, it feels like many of the characters, you meet them and you talk to them, but that's it. Like, you don't really get a lot of things that happen with them, like actual like scenes beyond you just like interviewing them and whatnot. Another criticism I would have, this is probably the biggest problem with both games, is they did not update the way the game plays. Like, when you choose to talk to someone, you'll get a list of different topics. And it's one of those games where it's like, okay, let me ask you about this character, and they'll be like, oh yeah, I know that person, and then that's it. And then you click on it again, and it's like, yeah, the two of us, we went to school together, and then you have to click on it again. And like, you can go through the entire line of dialogue, all the different dialogue options, and you haven't actually, like, you're still there, and like the travel thing will often not be available when you can't go anywhere. So it's like, I'm here, this is the only character around, what am I supposed to do? Like, it's often like trying to figure out this elaborate sequence of asking them things that will trigger a response. And sometimes they'll weave in like other actions, like you might have to call and engage. Like, the call and engage thing is typically used for if you have two characters in like the same room and you can switch between them. But sometimes it will be used for like, oh, this character is like lost in thought, and you call or engage them and they snap out of it. Sometimes you'll have to think to progress the story. Sometimes you'll have to try to travel. And this gets really confusing. Sometimes you'll have to look and examine a certain thing or examine the character. And I remember this is in some ways I would say it's worse in Missing Air because I remember there's like this one insanely complicated sequence where you can travel because the game is are generally pretty good about not giving you the travel option for like if it was present 24/7 you would just be doomed. You would not have a clue like when you were supposed to use it. And so it's usually not. But like in the Missing Air, when there's like this sequence where you can travel to like 3 or 4 different locations, and I just could not figure out how to progress the story. And these moments are like obvious. These moments where you just will be completely lost what to do, because if you try to look up what to do when you get to one of these moments, there's a special walkthrough that lists specifically these moments. It's not a full game walkthrough. It's just like, yeah, how do I get past this character? How do I progress this scene? And that is really annoying, like I said, especially in the Missing Air. In The Girl That Stands Behind, kind of like an added problem, and this, I only really encountered this twice, but like in like the very first scene where you can examine, like normally when you're moving your little cursor around to examine something, it'll be like door, vase, phone, when you have your cursor over those objects. But for some reason, in like 2 different scenes, there's something you can interact with that the cursor will not do anything for. Like, it won't tell you that this is a special point of interest, and you'll just be clicking like, I've examined everything that I can examine, what am I missing? And again, I had to resort to a walkthrough quite a few times to figure out what the heck I was doing wrong. So yeah, that is maddening. I don't know why they didn't try to fix that at all. The Girl That Stands Behind also has a few choice moments, but they don't really seem to do anything. Like, there's a scene where you're talking to a girl, and it's like, hey, give her this thing you have on you, or don't give it to her. And so it's like, okay, I'll give it to her, I guess. And then like 5 seconds later, I'm talking to another character, and it's like, oh, they don't remember what this character like. Well, bye. I gotta go get that item back. And it was like, why even give me that choice? And then there's like a choice where you can like see if you want a character to come with you somewhere. But even if you say no, like if you say yes, they'll be like, oh, I'll be busy. I'm busy. I'll meet you there later. If you say no, they'll still show up there later. Like, so it's like, why are you even giving me these choices that ultimately don't mean anything? So, I think that's all for criticisms. It's pretty much it as far as gameplay goes. I guess if I had to throw in another criticism, you save the game by choosing to quit the investigation. And from the way that sounds, it sounds like one of those save and quit kind of things where you save and the game immediately quits. That is not actually the case. You can just save and then keep playing. It also has an autosave feature, which is very helpful because I would get very caught up in the story and like completely fail to realize I had not saved. Like, I have an autosave from the recent chapter, but my last like physical save was like 4 chapters ago. So yeah, I think that's about it for gameplay. So let's start saying the positives. I think there's some decent progression in the Missing Air. Some good moments in both games, but I think Missing Air's progression was really good. The standout thing that I would say about these games is they look incredible. Like, forget every visual novel you have played before. This game looks better. Like I recently I have a playthrough going on my channel of The Letter. And like visually that game has a lot of things going for it. Like if you're standing in a hallway, the curtains will blow, or those freaking birds that keep flying by and the characters move a bit. But even that pales in comparison to this game. Like, the backgrounds are alive. Like, you'll walk into a room and there's a woman bent over looking at a paper on a desk, and she'll like look up and she'll straighten and she'll start talking to you and her mouth is moving. Or like there's a scene where you're sitting in a cafe with a dude, and this is not like an animated sequence, like a cutscene. This is a still image, and like people are walking by outside. There's a moment where you're talking to someone outside a school's entrance, and in the background you see a dude open up his shoe locker and a bunch of love letters fall out. And just like all these little details are just amazing. Game looks great. It's just wow. So, talked about gameplay, talked about graphics, story. I talked a bit about. Um, you can technically play the games in either order. You can name the protagonist. He's a 17-year-old boy who is voiced by Megumi Ogata, which is the voice actor for Naegi from Danganronpa and about 20,000 other characters. But yeah, all the voice acting is Japanese. There's no English dub. I thought the voice acting was good. I'm generally not good at like judging the quality of Japanese voice acting though. Like I've never heard Japanese voice acting that didn't sound good to me, but I do really like Megumi Ogata, partly because of Danganronpa. But so you can play the games in whatever order. Personally, I would suggest playing The Girl That Stands Behind first. I do overall think The Missing Heir is the better game, and I think it serves as a better conclusion. Like, The Girl That Stands Behind just feels kind of like just like a prequel title, like, oh, you liked these two characters, here's how they met type of deal. And like it's not a bad game, but I felt the conclusion was a little lackluster. And like I said, the progression in a Missing Heir was definitely way better, and it's kind of hard to explain what I mean by that. So if you are a fan of mysteries or old school games or visual novels, I would definitely recommend these two titles. They're very enjoyable. So I'm going to get into the spoiler section now. So Missing Heir, when I keep saying that I like their progression, it's basically because people keep dying. And it's just like who's gonna be next and how. And like I like the types of murder mystery games where people just keep getting picked off. I feel like there aren't enough of those. And like I think like the creepiest moment is probably when you dig up the old woman's grave and you find the son. I feel so bad for his mom. Like first her husband and now her son and all her other relatives are basically dying. Like this whole family pretty much got killed. And it's like I just feel so bad for her. Like she's having like the worst time of things. And the butler, but I guess the butler gets what he wants in that we are found alive. I immediately suspected the dude who helps us. I'm not going to be throwing out a lot of names here, especially for the Missing Heir, because like I said, I don't remember most of their names. But the guy that saves us, it's like I've played mystery games. You're clearly important in some way. You're not going to just be a dude who saves us. You're going to be super relevant to the plot. I thought for a bit that he might turn out to be like the missing, not the heir, but the other dude, the other son guy who was mentioned. But I figured out he was probably the villain pretty fast, just because like whenever they introduce a character that seems totally unassuming, it's like, yeah, you're probably evil. I also figured out the cigarette poison thing, and just the whole time I'm like, oh my gosh, figure it out already. It's so obvious. Let's see, what else? I did figure out also pretty early on that we were the Missing Heir. I'm not entirely sure why the villain guy didn't just let us die. Like, I know he wanted us to find, like, the thing, whatever, but, like, it just feels like a stupid risk. Like we could have died and you wouldn't have been blamed at all. Just walk away, man. And yeah, like that's the scene where you had to go like between like the cliff and like 3 other places. That was the part of the game where I could not figure out how to progress. And the real son guy, that like was he like the illegitimate child or something? But like he left his girlfriend behind for like a decade or something. Like you couldn't have taken her with you. Like I'm glad he had success. He seems like a nice guy. I did love the fact that a random NPC we meet for 2 seconds turns out to be this super important character. Kind of wish the detective guy was more relevant, though. Like, he's not relevant in either game, really. He's there, but not much. I'm not entirely sure why. Let's see, what else can we say? I think that's about it for Missing Heir. I have a lot more to say about The Girl That Stands Behind, because like I said, I just beat that last night. So I did end up pretty disappointed near the end because, like, as we got later in the game, it's like, who did this? Because, like, I never suspected the janitor, Tazaki. I actually really like him. I think he's super cute. But I never suspected him because it's like, the minute they're making a character really suspicious, it's like, yeah, you probably didn't kill anyone. Plus, we kind of had our confrontation with him fairly early on. So it's like, yeah, it's probably not him. I suspected the principal the minute they introduced him because everyone just cannot shut up about how great he is. And it's like, so he's probably killed people. But then, like, after you talk with him, he really doesn't come across like the bad guy. So I started to think he was innocent. I was suspicious a bit of Hibino. Like, I thought Hibino would probably turn out to be Goro. Like, I thought that would have been a nice twist. Because, like, the mean, creepy guy that's hanging out around the school, like, he's the obvious choice for Goro, but that's so, like, predictable because he's so evil looking. And I didn't think he was the killer either, just because he's so evil looking. And then Komoda tells us, like, I don't think he'd be hanging around the school if he didn't. I think he was the one who told us that. And Hitomi wouldn't make sense as the culprit. He's introduced too late. I thought Hitomi was going to die because he is not in the missing hair. And yeah, Ayumi probably didn't do it because she is in the missing hair and she's a major character. So if she killed people and got away with it, that'd be a bit weird. Still mad at her for drugging us. That was really stupid. But so Hibino also wasn't in the story enough for me to suspect him too much. What other characters do we have? It doesn't feel like we had a lot of... We had too many... I think that was part of why I didn't know who to suspect, was that we just didn't have a lot of characters. And, like, I already told you what I thought of most of them, so it's like, who did this, and why would they do it? Like, figuring out the motives between all this, like... And I also really thought that if she was dead, the girl... Was her name Shinobu or something? Not entirely sure that's right, but I figured if she was dead, she was totally behind that wall or behind the mirror. Like, they did mention, like, how, Yuki came up behind me when I was looking into the mirror and said, the girl who stands behind might really be behind you. The problem with that scene, though, is that when she says it, Ayumi is looking at the mirror, not standing with her back to it. So, that didn't seem to really work, but... Anyway, so we're getting near the end, and it's like, oh, who's the culprit? And I did briefly think it might be Komoda, because he's not really having any role in the story, but he keeps helping us out. But then we had that fake-out moment with him, where he pretended he was going to kill us, which was pretty stupid. But, so it's like, okay, it's probably not him, but then who the frick is it? And I thought he was the one who called us to the school near the end. Turns out to be Urabe, the principal, who has taken his own life and confessed to everything. And, like, I don't really believe that letter immediately, because it sounds super stupid. And then even when Hibino confessed that he was the actual killer, I still didn't really believe it. Like, I thought he was, like, messing with us to try and protect the principal, because it really did seem a bit out of nowhere. And, like, how does he break the mirror by stabbing it? Like, what is that glass made out of? I mean, I did like the body falling on him and him freaking out, but there were just too many problems with it for me. Like, okay, let's look at Arabe for a minute here, the principal. So, like, why did he decide to kill himself? Was it genuinely guilt, and he decided to also use it to help out Hibino? Or was the main goal helping out Hibino? Either way, he's like, he decides to take his own life knowing how many people he'll devastate. And, like, what does he even actually accomplish? Like, he calls us to the scene. We are a 17-year-old. And it's like, yeah, we're working as a detective's assistant, but we're a 17-year-old. Like, you're calling... Like, because he's portrayed as this super kind guy who loves his students, and then he's like, let me traumatize this 17-year-old by inviting him to the scene of my death so he can find my body. And, like, that's a weird choice. Plus, like, he shouldn't have really known that we were closing in on Hibino at all. And actually, I didn't think Hibino was guilty, because he so obviously hated the two dudes that died that it was like, it doesn't really, like, I feel like he doesn't care that much about it, and, like, if he had actually killed them, he'd just be like, they deserved it, so whatever. And since we blame the principal, I figured he'd confess to save him if he really was guilty. But so he shouldn't know that we're even close to Hibino, so taking his own life doesn't make sense. And then by doing that, he's kind of leaving Hibino unchecked. Like, okay, you could maybe write off the murder of Kaneda, the first Kaneda, because, you know, he was a real bad guy and had just caused the man that Hibino thought was his dad to kill himself. So, like, you know, he's young, he's stupid, he makes a mistake. But by the time Arabe takes his own life, Hibino has also killed Goro and Yuki, one of the students who Arabe supposedly loves, and it's like, you really think by killing yourself that this is gonna fix everything? Like, now he's got no anchor, and he's probably gonna kill a lot more people, which he immediately tries to kill us. Like, maybe you should have wrote him a special suicide note and given it to him or something, or talked with him or something, because he does it. So I didn't like the suicide. And then, like, for how kind and caring he's supposed to be towards the students, he takes Shinobu's body. I'm still pretty sure I'm getting her name wrong. He takes her body, and he, rather than make sure she's given a proper burial, because, like, I can understand why they wouldn't want the body to be found near the murder scene. That would be bad. But, like, you couldn't have just put her somewhere else where she'd be found and just make it seem like it was a random hit and run. Like, you know, you take her and you hide her body in the school. And the way they hide it, too, doesn't even make sense. Like, he plasters her behind a mirror. And it's like, where did you even get that mirror? How did you learn how to do this? And, like, wouldn't it have started to smell like she's not even encased in plaster? Like, she's... The only thing between her and the hallway is that mirror, is a sheet of glass. So it's very strange. And, like, for someone who cares so much about the students, it's kind of horrifying that he does that. And then, like, with Yuki, he finds her dead in the hallway, and apparently to protect Hibino, he takes her body and throws it in a river. And, like, first of all, why didn't he try to hide her body, like the way he did with the other girls? And also, it's kind of messed up that he threw her body in a river. Like, he cares about these students, but he's treating their bodies pretty badly. And, like, he shouldn't have even really known that Hibino was the one that did that. So it just comes across, again, very strange. So, yeah, and then, like, Yuki was investigating the rumor and found the connection to the Kaneda case, which is fine, but how did she learn everything else? Like, how did she know Hibino's role in everything? Like, she just knew a surprising amount of information, and why was her behavior so weird? And then they have that weird fake out with, like, the ghost story maybe being real, where it's like she got back up and was speaking at the window and then I attacked her, and then it's like, well, no, that couldn't have happened. And, like, I guess they kind of did that with the missing heir, too, where people were saying they saw the old woman's ghost walking around and then we don't find her body ever. But, I don't know, like, I can kind of understand wanting to leave open the possibility that there's a ghost, but I think I would have enjoyed it more if the game had been a little more clear on that. So, yeah. And I think that's about it. Like, I still think that they're pretty good games. Well worth what I paid for them. I got like 10% off because I bought them both, so you get a discount. But yeah, that is all for now. Thanks so much for watching. Please leave a comment, and I'll see you next time. Bye!